Sci-fi, horror, gore, thriller, you name it, we love it. If we didn't know better, the past decade has all been about glorifying the horror genre, whether it's the movies or the games. Speaking of games, is it just us? Or this year's Summer Games Fest lineup was utterly terrifying. There were so many horror games that it was very difficult to tell the difference. And why was it so? Let's find out. First up, why are sci-fi horror games gaining so much attention? There's no doubt that the horror genre in the gaming world has been receiving quite the attention, with the likes of the classics like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Phasmophobia being fan favorites. There were bound to be more making headlines. But why this surge all of a sudden? Almost every big game coming out is either too gory or too scary. The highlight of the Summer Games Fest roundup was definitely the Callisto Protocol. The game is a mind-bending survival horror ride that obviously looks like it's been inspired by Dead Space. The game clearly had that dark and spacey vibe. It almost feels as if Ghost in the Shell had a baby with Dead Space. The horror survival game got its first big gameplay reveal at the Summer Games Fest, and it was full of gore. Like the way we love it. But then again, the million-dollar question is, why such a sudden surge in popularity of horror games? Actually, watching horror movies may not be everyone's cup of tea. Not because those people are scared, but mostly because people find that old-school jump scares outdated. As for the horror survival games, the immersive experience and the clever separation between being a viewer and actually being the protagonist in a story has led to more popularity of horror games. There's a disconnect in the movies. Most of them only have one part, but the horror games, there's a continuity and only increases the player's interest. Many sci-fi horror game series like Dead Space, Resident Evil, and even Amnesia offers a progressive story that only gets better with the next installment. This year's Summer Game Fest was full of gore and dark themes. The Summer Game Fest was full of gore and horror survival games, and it wasn't easy to tell where one trailer started and the other ended. For instance, the audience was quite confused between Amnesia Dark Descent and Aliens Dark Descent. After Callisto Protocol's horrifying reveal, we ended up with Routine's trailer, which graced the screens after a decade. The alien-inspired horror game is back, and it looks as good as it did back in 2013. Developer Lunar Software worked with publisher Raw Fury to put the game back in action. Looking at the trailer, one thing's for sure, the new Routine has more creepy corridors, less gore, but more aliens. It's evident that people like the idea of being stuck in space, getting chased by aliens, while the fate of humanity depends on them. That may also be because legends like Dead Space were so good that people always wanted something similar to fill the gap. That severed hand floating in space is iconic and represents a milestone in the horror survival genre. As for New Blood, the Callisto Protocol has video game lovers in fits because it looks as scary as the developers promised us. The new gameplay has everything from jump scares to gore, and don't even get us started on the visuals. They looked out of this world. Callisto will definitely be this year's Dead Space. Have you looked at the way the guy was caught in the whirling machinery? Absolutely mind-boggling. The Callisto Protocol is all set to release at the end of this year and could be the horror survival game that the audience has been craving. Besides these, this year's lineup also consists of totally awesome titles like Zenless Zone Zero, Marvel's Midnight Sun, The Quarry, Layers of Fears, Metal Hellsinger, Stormgate, and more. Up next, Callisto Protocol is coming back more gross. Fans of space gore, zombie-like aliens, and stranded astro soldiers line up because the Callisto Protocol is the next big space horror game. Creator of the latest horror survival fest, Glenn Schofield, claims that the inspiration for the game comes from the 2008 French New Extreme, but one can easily say that the Callisto is the spiritual successor of Dead Space. If not officially, Glenn revealed that he was haunted for weeks after witnessing the gore in Martyrs, and that his obsession with the horror genre can be seen throughout the game. The Summer Game Fest showcased dozens of new games, which will grace the PCs, but the Callisto Protocol was definitely the one to stand out. The game's story is set in a prison, and not just any prison, but a horrific one on the moon. Since everyone is already scared of the idea of being in prison, it was easy to mesh the horror body with this idea, because we can all imagine what prisons would be like in space. Glenn also explains that the game offers an extremely immersive experience that anyone with a headphone would like to turn their head to every now and then. The background and the environment are that good. That's what horror games are about, isn't it? To offer elements that will keep the player engaged and pay extreme attention to details. The thing that sets Callisto Protocol apart from Dead Space is that it's a different kind of combat. Players are required to use everything they got. The melee is an important aspect of the game, and Glenn claims that it's going to be be very brutal. This means that the fans can expect a lot of hand-to-hand combat instead of simply relying on high-grade weaponry. However, Schofield doesn't mention that there are going to be enemies so tearing that you wouldn't have to be up close with them. And now, in related news, a new version of The Last of Us announced in the Summer Games 2022. The hit survival game is coming to PC, and we can't wait to spend our hours playing it. The Summer Game Fest gave us the official preview of The Last of Us Part 1, but not a lot of detail was given out on the upcoming multiplayer version of the game. The game's PC version is currently in development. It will be out on PS5 on September 2nd. The Last of Us is perhaps one of PlayStation's biggest games, and for it to come to PC, that's a dream come true for gamers. The game is getting a remake for the PC version, and it's rumored that it's going to have improved controls, better effects, and incorporate modernized gameplay. After success of games like Spider-Man and God of War on PC, Sony's pushing for The Last of Us's PC release to keep the ball rolling. Next, Layers of Fear looks unreal. The Summer Game Fest is like Christmas for gamers. Many highly anticipated games were announced this year, among which Layers of Fear has caught everyone's attention. The newest venture from the Blobber team. It was announced that Layers of Fear will be coming to Xbox, XS, PC, and PS5 in early 2023. The Blobber team refers to the game as a psychedelic horror chronicle that won't be a sequel nor a remaster, but rather its foundation is built on the original Layers of Fear. The game will also reflect some elements from Layers of Fear 2 and Layers of Fear Inheritance, and will explore an expanded gameplay direction. As excited as it sounds, it was rather difficult to make out what the changes might be in the trailer shown at the fest. The fans haven't made out as to what will tie all the remake versions of the scenes from the games together. Pietro Babbiano, the Blobber CEO, announced that they were trying to bring back a franchise that's really special in a refreshing form. The team would like to experience a fresh take on overall gameplay and the story. Anyone who knows the name Blobber knows that they are the unprecedented king of the horror genre, with names like The Medium, Blair Witch, and Observer under their belt. Fans will definitely be blown away by the new Layers of Fear because it will obviously be terrifying. And lastly, Capcom's Street Fighter 6 is standing out. Street Fighter is a household name, and when you have to live up to expectations, it's hard to run such franchises till the end. But the sixth part of the game is leaving a blazing trail that fans can't ignore. 90s kids used to play Street Fighter casually, but with the evolution in visuals, gameplay, and game boxes, Street Fighter was bound to get a major remake. The game looks expressive, and despite not having storyboards like the popular games have these days, it's still worth a try. Capcom's Street Fighter 6 got a preview at the Summer Game Fest, and the action in it is worth all the time in the world. As we've established before, it's hard for Street Fighter to look like Resident Evil or even The Last of Us, but since the game thrives on hype, Capcom has delivered that just right. The motion is exciting, the animation is on point, and it has a better open world story. The game mimics the real world energy of a fighting tournament, and for what it's worth, it will make an excellent subject for play-by-play commentary. And that's a wrap for this video. Which Summer Games Fest lineup has got you most excited? Let us know in the comments section below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. And we'll see you in the next one.